Hello, I'm D Honda, the older brother of E, and this is Board Deck and Dice. Today we're looking at the Street Fighter deck building game, which is one of Cryptozoic's Cerberus engine deck builders. So other examples of this would be the DC deck building game. I have it set up here for the normal game. It is a 2 to 5 player game, although I wouldn't recommend playing more than 2, and we'll get to the reasons for that in a moment. So we have the standard trade row where you can buy cards from. I can't remember what it's called in this, but in Star Realms it's called the trade row. This is the trade row deck where we refill that from if we should buy a card. Over here we have kicks, which are kind of like the Explorer card in Star Realms, which is just a card that you can usually buy quite cheap and gives you a bit of bonus. Then we have locations, bosses and weaknesses. Weaknesses are cards that can come into your hand through various circumstances, and you kind of want to get rid of them as soon as possible. You certainly don't want them in your hand at the end of the game because they are worth -1 point. As usual in a deck building game, you will start with a hand of 5 cards from your starting deck, which is relatively weak. In your starting deck you will have punches and vulnerabilities. Punches are only worth 1 power and vulnerabilities are worth nothing, so you want to get rid of them as soon as you can by scrapping them from the game, getting rid of them from the game, which other card powers let you do as you progress. You also have a hero. Here I've got Chun-Li, and then under that hero you will have your ultra move, and this goes under your hero. Now, one of the things that kind of differentiates this from other deck building games I've played is that cards can at various points in the game go underneath your hero, and this is like your own private collection which you can buy from. Another thing to mention is that this is not a game where you're attacking the other player very often. Even though it's Street Fighter and you would think it would be a one-on-one fighting game, what you're trying to do is get victory points a la Dominion or more recently Xenon Profiteer. And the way you do that is by earning enough power to buy or defeat a location. Once you do that, that will go into your discard pile, and when it comes out you play it in front of you and it gives you a permanent ability boost. So those can be quite handy. But it is quite an unusual system for the Street Fighter world, where you think you would be battling directly against the other person like Star Realms and trying to take them on, when actually you're just trying to beat a boss at a location, and you'll turn the boss over at the same time and do whatever it says on that card as well. So you do have defense on some cards. Chun-Li's bracelets here have defense, and you may reveal this card to avoid an attack from another player, and other cards will have attacks that you can play on player. For example, your ultra card will have an attack and a defense on. And what you're trying to do each go is just secure enough power in your hand that you can buy the card you want or defeat a location. It's an okay game. My problem is, as a fan of deck builders, that this one doesn't really do enough for me. I have Star Realms, I have Xenon Profiteer, I have Flip City. I really like deck builders, and this one just doesn't differentiate itself enough. Added to the fact that the rulebook is not the best, it misses out some things. Like, it took us ages to find out how many cards you should draw into your hand for the first go, and we read and reread the rules, and it just wasn't clear until it mentioned somewhere else how many cards your hand should have in there. So little things like that. If you haven't played a deck builder before, I do not recommend this as a starting deck builder. I think the rules are not clear enough. The way it works is slightly different and a little bit counterintuitive. So I'm going to say this one for intimidation, it really depends on if you've played a deck building game before. If you have, you'll probably be fine with it and you'll get the stuff. And if you like the kind of thing I've described, if you don't like the direct conflict and you'd rather go after victory points, then that might be something that suits you. If you haven't played deck builders before, this is fairly high intimidation factor. The rulebook, not great, a bit wordy, misses out some obvious things where it should put them. It mentions them later but not very clearly. Fun. Well, I have fun playing deck builders, and there were elements of fun in this. Obviously when you chain together a big combo and the person you're playing is like, oh my goodness, that's amazing, you're going to do all this stuff, it feels really good, as it does in other deck builders. The problem is, this is a long game. For a deck builder, this takes far too long. We can play a game of Star Realms in 15-20 minutes, half an hour maybe, This is pushing up to an hour with 2 players, and I can't imagine how that would grow with 3 players. So for me, the fun racing really comes down there. It's not one I can recommend with the other deck builders out in the market. However, if you do enjoy the Cryptozoic Cerberus system, you may like it. But again, in that system, this Street Fighter game has no expansions apart from 1 promo card, whereas the DC deck building game that they do has a lot more expansions, so that might be the one you want to go for if you enjoy the Cerberus system. I've been D Honda, and you've been watching Board, Deck and Dice. Thank you.